Hey YouTube, it's Firewalker, and thank you for joining me for the second video in what's becoming a Healing from Faith series. I am making this video at the request specifically of my uncle, who is non-religious and is the only family member I actually still speak to. He's been there for me through some difficult times recently with my faith changing and the estrangement from my parents. He's watched every single one of these videos. And I know he's watching this one, and I just want to say thank you for being there for me and for being a part of my life. And so basically, the last video, if you haven't watched it yet, it's 10 ways in which the God of the Bible can seem abusive. It's linked in the description down below, and I highly recommend that you watch that first because it talks about some of the ways in which Christianity specifically can be abusive, and this video is going to talk about how to heal from it. My uncle wanted me okay, so that was a really cool video, but now what? What do you do with this information? You have this abuse, then how do you heal from it? And I thought that was a really good question, and that's prompted this series. Marlene Winell, PhD, author of Journey Free, Resources for Recovery from Harmful Religion, and specifically Part 3, The Trauma of Leaving Religion, has this to say about leaving one's religion. People report huge relief and some excitement about their new possibilities. Certain problems are over, such as trying to twist one's thinking to believe irrational religious doctrines, handling enormous cognitive dissonance in order to get by in the, quote, real world, unquote, as well, and conforming to repetitive codes of behavior. Finally, leaving a restrictive religion can be a major personal accomplishment after trying to make it work and going through many cycles of guilt and confusion. So there's a positive of it, is that you can feel a lot better and sort of liberated. As a negative, though, problems with self-worth and fear of terrible punishment continue. The phobia indoctrination makes it difficult to avoid the stabbing thought, even after many years of leaving, that one has made a terrible mistake, thinking, what if they were right? And in leaving religion, you lose, especially the Christian religion, you lose 3 key aspects of the way you view the world. The idea that the world is benevolent, the world is meaningful, and the self is worthy. I noticed when actually, the first time I'd ever gotten a ticket ever was shortly after I left Christianity, had the big fight with my parents, and I remember getting pulled over, and actually the entire month was a mess, and one thing after another kept happening. I remember thinking, I really wish I was still a Christian. That way I could tell myself that it's all going to be okay in the end, and that God has some plan for this to turn out well. That thought actually occurred to me and kind of bothered me a little bit, and also I found it kind of amusing, a little bit ironic. But I had to find a new way to deal with things than I ever had before, because I couldn't just assume that God was going to make it better and that He has a plan, etc., because I lost that framework of thinking. And so I had to develop new coping mechanisms and find some inner power, thinking that it's going to be okay because I will make it through this, because I can survive this, because etc., instead of just assuming that God would save me or something. And so losing those can be extremely traumatic to a person. Their entire life, almost everything they've learned about their life and the way to view life has completely been changed. And there's actually a term for this, as well as other post-traumatic symptoms. It's called religious trauma syndrome, and you should definitely look it up, and for sure read this article by Marlene Winell. It's extremely enlightening. It's very helpful. So I want to share some of the small ways in which people can be hurt by religion and continue to have problems even after they leave their religion. It's sort of almost post-traumatic stress disorder in some cases. It's just the 3 main things that I've seen in my own life and I think are very widespread would be, first of all, shame messages that you get from religion can continue, and from religious people who have been in your life, and that you maybe, like I did, I gave up, my family because I was getting these shame messages and recognized that it was harmful. It wasn't a good relationship. But I know in high school, the messages I got were that I wasn't good enough, that I would never fit in, that I was as good as invisible, that nobody cared. And that's even through church, a religious high school. I never, ever could find anywhere to fit in. And was always alone, and would actually eat lunch alone on a daily basis, would go, be the first one into a classroom, and the room would just sort of fill in around me, and no matter what, I would just have empty seats beside me, and because everyone would sit by their friends, and I didn't have any, so I was left alone. And I tried going to youth groups to make friends, and just constantly found myself on the outside, and I couldn't understand why. I thought that something was fundamentally wrong with me. And actually, my family has something we refer to as the invisibility gene, which means that we go places and we're not really sure why we bother trying to talk, because nobody's listening and nobody cares. They don't really care whether we're there, whether we're gone, nor do they really notice, and we just always end up being the outsiders. And I think it's really sad because my mom still, she still goes to church and can feel this way. I used to feel that way going to church, but now that I'm going to a secular church, Unitarian Universalist church, which is a place where people of all different beliefs can come together and it's a place where we just discuss things. Atheists, Buddhists, pagans, people who refuse to identify as anything like me. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Anybody at all. We all just meet there and love on each other and say, you know what, I might disagree with you, but I respect you. And I think you're an amazing person, and we just are able to discuss things. I don't feel like an outsider anymore. I'm actually able to make friends, and people actually listen to the things that I have to say and treat me like I have some good thoughts, some good things to say, and they respect me, and that I'm not the only one, and I no longer feel like an outsider. And I think it's really strange. It's a strange idea to me, growing up in a religious household, that I would find this in a non-religious place, a non-Christian place. With Christianity, I got messages that I'm not good enough to be saved on my own. I need God to save me, that naturally sinful and thus a bad person, and so you need God to save you and to make you better, that you can't make decisions on your own. You need God to guide you. It teaches you to kind of not trust your own intuition, and can cause a lot of problems for some people more than others. I've always just been headstrong, so that part in particular hasn't really affected me too much. I got the message that my parents won't be proud of me unless I'm a Christian, despite what they used to say when I was a kid. We'll always love you, always be proud of you. Apparently there's some terms and conditions I didn't realize that I had signed. I got the message that I deserve to be punished for walking away from Christ. I got the message that God is punishing me because I asked them for some financial help, and they said, like you see in my last video, they said that I chose to rebel against God and them, and so I had to deal with the consequences of my own actions on my own. They weren't going to interfere with that. So basically anything bad that's happening, or I might need help with something, is God punishing me, which creates fear of leaving too, because you think something bad's going to happen to you. And anyways, I'm going to cover that later. So shame messages, and it's something that would sort of continue. My self-worth really took a hit, and just knowing that I could never make them proud was very difficult. And the idea that I never seemed to be able to be good enough for God was also very difficult, which turns into self-blame. Like, they're not proud of me, it's my fault. I'm not good enough to be saved, it's my fault. I sinned, it's my fault. just internalize it and turn it on yourself. Like, somebody else has an issue, I must have done something to create that. It's horribly harmful, and it's something that with my therapist and some books that I'm reading, that I'm trying to overcome the self-blame. Somewhere in my childhood, I got the idea in my head that I was responsible for other people's happiness. And I'm really trying to overcome that, and it's been very liberating so far. So self-blame is a huge problem after you've lost your religion, abandoned your religion, whatever. Fear of leaving, because you think something bad is going to happen to you, that God is going to punish you in this life, or the next life you might go to hell. Like Marlene said in her article, no matter how many years it's been since you've been in that religion, you can still have that thought, what if they're right? What if they're right and I am going to go to hell? And it's sort of the Pascal's wager, where you'd rather err on the side of caution. But it doesn't stand up logically at all, because it only works if there are only two options: the Christian God or atheism void. It doesn't account for all the world's religions, and you might piss off some other God who might be real, but that God, the God of the Bible, isn't. It doesn't work, but still that fear is there, that I could be wrong and I could go to hell, because it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, that thought, really. And that can be detrimental for people who are thinking about leaving, or thinking, this doesn't make sense, but it can kind of shut down that thought process just out of fear. And then, just the fear of, even after you left, like I got, one bad thing was happening after another in June, and I thought that God was punishing me, because this was just after my parents told me that he was. And it had to bring myself back through it. It was kind of terrifying to me, because I thought maybe I was wrong and I'd pissed God off. But seriously, bad things happen all the time, and the idea that God is punishing you just because something bad happened is extremely harmful to people. And it hurts me not only because of that, but it also hurts me that my parents are the ones who told me that God was punishing me. Like, why would you say that to your child? Why? I don't think they understood how hurtful that message is, and that also that I deserve to be punished. That's a terrible, terrible thing, and I know that other people go through it so much worse than I had it even. So thank you for joining me for the first part of the Healing from Faith series, where we got to discuss some of the ways that leaving your religion can hurt, and the little things that are still traumatic and can cause pain. In the next video, we'll discuss some of the ways in which we can begin to heal, and how important it is to heal properly instead of repressing things and trying to pretend like it doesn't hurt and not talk about it. So this is Firewalker. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, rate, subscribe, etc. down below. You can find the link to Marlene Winell's article in the description. And if you want to think about, and I would love to hear some of your stories. Did you come from a religious background? What happened when you left, or have you left, or are you afraid to leave, etc.? How have you healed from that? I would love to hear some more of your stories in the comments below, or Facebook message, YouTube message, owl, stork, doesn't matter. Anyway, the message. So look forward to hearing from you guys, and I also look forward to seeing you in the next part of this series.